Crayons make great gifts, but the boxes really don't last too long. So why not make a cute crayon bag? You can do this in about 10 minutes with just a little bit of fabric. Let me show you how it's done. Now, first of all, I'm going to say that the fabric I used was cut from an old shirt. So you only need small pieces of fabric. You can source them from anywhere. I'll leave a link in the descriptions for some great places to get cheap fabric. So I'm measuring a 6-inch by an 8-inch piece of fabric in order to cut for these drawstring bags. I will need 2 pieces of fabric. Once cut, and one of my simple ways of doing this is that I just cut one square and I use it as a template to cut the other square. So then I'm going to pin them with the right sides together and create a seam on the bottom. I used a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then I pressed that seam open with a hot iron. So now I've put those right sides together again, and I've pinned the fabric so that it doesn't move around. Now I'm going to measure a section that is 2 inches down and then 3/8 of an inch across. And I use that 3/8 number because that is the seam allowance that I'm going to be using. You're going to want to measure that distance on both sides of the fabric. I used a tailor's chalk, which is this. You can use marker or whatever you want. Then I cut along that line, that 3/8 of an inch inwards, and you just cut right up to that 3/8 inch mark. Don't cut any further. You can then unpin the fabric and lay it out so that it is a long rectangular piece of fabric. So with those cut edges, I am now folding them in and kind of pressing them down with my fingers, and you fold that inwards as I am showing. Once they are folded in, if you need to, you can iron those down, but usually just pressing them is okay. Now fold that piece down in half until that top cut edge comes down and meets that exact point where you had cut 3/8 of an inch inwards. You are going to pin it down and do this on either side. Once you are ready with that, then go ahead and stitch across that line to connect that seam. You want to do this right along the edge. You don't need a 3/8 inch seam allowance. You want to do it right along that edge, keeping in mind that the thread is going to be visible on the outside of the bag. All right, so once you have both sides sewn, those drawstring casings, you're going to again fold that fabric in half with the right sides together, and then just make sure that all the edges are lined up as evenly as possible. Pin that together so that it doesn't move around, and then you're going to sew straight stitches along either side, and you're going to do that at the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So essentially starting from that cut point and just working your way down with that same 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you've done both sides, cut the corners, being careful not to cut into the seams. This just reduces the bulk, so it's easier to turn inside out and get a sharper corner for the bag once you turn it inside out. So again, turn it inside out. You can use your fingers to kind of poke out the corners. If you have a turning tool, you can obviously use that as well. It shouldn't be too hard to poke out those corners using your fingers. And now it's time to add the drawstring. So I used a piece of cord that was 22 inches long. You want 2 pieces of this cord. You don't have to use this measurement. You can eyeball it and make it longer if you'd like. I don't recommend making it shorter for this size of a bag. So put a safety pin on the end of the cord and then insert it into one of the drawstring casings. Kind of inch that safety pin through the casing to pull through the cord. Leave a few inches off at the end. Now you're going to loop that cord around, put the safety pin back through the other drawstring casing, and again, inch that cord, or you could use ribbon and put that through the drawstring casing. Now at the ends where the seams are, it might get a little bit caught up, so just work that way, work it out and get the safety pin out. Now, once you have done that, you want to put a safety pin on the other piece of cord and do it in the opposite way. So I am inserting the safety pin on the side where the other piece of cord is looped, if that makes sense. You just watch the video and you can see how that is demonstrated. So what you want at the end is to have cut ends on either side and a loop on either side. And that is going to be making the drawstring tie for these bags. Instead of a safety pin, you can also use something called a bodkin, which is a sewing tool that is often used in order to be drawing ribbons and cords through casings. It just makes it kind of easier. So now that you can see, there is a loop on each side, and then there are 2 cut ends on each side. Now, as you see, as I'm making this, the cord was fraying a little bit. That is probably going to happen with ribbon or any cord that you use. So go ahead and tie it in a knot. This is how you're going to complete the drawstring bag. You're going to tie a knot with the 2 cut ends on each side. And then if you want, you can wrap the end of that with like clear tape in order to keep it from fraying. I'm demonstrating how to make the bag closed right there. So you could cut that down, wrap it with clear tape. You might be able to put like a little bit of clear glue on the end to keep it from fraying. It's going to really depend on the type of material that you are going to be using for your cording. But that is it. It is super easy in order to make these crayon bags. These are actually great for Operation Christmas Child. It's perfect for them to store their art supplies, and they get an extra storage bag.